Happy Monday, everybody, from the Austin and Birm Show on 97.1 The Fan, 10 TV, 10 TV Plus, anywhere else you get your podcasts. I'm Jeremy Birmingham, joined today by Zach Boren, former Ohio State captain and overall good guy who loves football. It's weird doing this on a Monday morning with you, Zach. It's not Austin. I assume from your perspective, like the camera looks a lot crisper. There's not a lot of fuzz. So that's probably weird for you. But
yes, sound is better, picture is better, conversation might be better. Who knows? I mean, I'm just happy you can join me on this Monday morning.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Zach is getting ready to move out of his house. We're trying to scramble all this stuff together. Austin's in Disney World. The Ohio State didn't play this weekend. There's not a lot to talk about when it comes to the Buckeyes that hasn't been discussed already. But over the course of the last week, Zach, a lot of discussion about the upcoming game against Penn State. Feels like to me it's been sort of diffused and deflected and put away because people around the country are under this impression that Penn State just stinks. I don't feel that way. And I know you've probably watched enough Penn State to know that and played against Penn State enough to know what that game means to them. And like as you head into this week, Ohio State, I think, is now a 3-score favorite. Is that too much? Does it feel weird to you that this game, despite obviously Penn State fired James Franklin. Penn State lost Drew Aller for the season. Penn State's lost 4 games in a row. Penn State's falling apart. But like it's Ohio State, Penn State, and it still feels like this is a game that the people at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center are taking very, very seriously to start off this week.
Yeah, I don't understand the narrative surrounding this game right now. I also don't understand the spread of, I believe at this point it's 17.5 or something along those lines. Don't get any of it because at the end of the day, this Penn State team might not have James Franklin, which if you talk to a lot of Penn State folks, that might be the greatest thing going into a big-time matchup. This team also doesn't have Drew Aller, but I think everyone around the country has seen that Drew Aller wasn't as sharp as maybe some people anticipated him to be this year. Now, in saying that, this Penn State team has the same personnel and same talent that everyone was expecting to win the national championship game. Like this team hasn't changed from the expectations just 8-9 weeks ago. This same team went to overtime with Oregon, and a lot of people said, kind of 3 quarters of that game they got dominated. The 4th quarter they dominated, and I think a lot of people would argue that they should have won in overtime. Yes, this same team, wasn't motivated against a UCLA team the week after that or a Northwestern team, and the list goes on, right? This team is going to be ultra motivated to come into the Horseshoe and play the number 1 team in the country and show everyone that they're not just going to lay over. When the guys on this team look at each other and say, we should have, our expectation was to be playing in a national championship and winning a national championship game. Guess what? This is going to be their national championship game to them. They are going to do everything they possibly can. Terry Smith, the interim coach, I believe it's Terry Smith, right?
Yeah.
Terry Smith, the interim coach for Penn State. This is his way of showing Penn State.
He deserves a job.
AD, like, hey, this is my job interview, right? I'm gonna do everything I possibly can. So you're going to see a team that's very hungry. You're going to see a team that's motivated to make big plays, to make splash plays, to get as much momentum as they can, whether it be trick plays, whether it be whatever it might be to get an upper hand. This team is going to do it.
Yeah, they're not. It's weird because this isn't a team that's just on the precipice of falling off the cliff of the earth, but like they're desperate. They obviously, like, if you don't win this game, you might not even become bowl eligible if you're Penn State. Like, there's a lot of weird things that are at play here. As you mentioned, obviously the Terry Smith, who's been a guy who's been a part of that staff for a long time, trying to prove that he can maybe be the head coach since no one else seems to want it. Andy Koltanecki now on the firing block a little bit, the offensive coordinator who just a year ago was like the belle of the ball. Jim Knowles, obviously the storylines there are copious. They are obvious. They are in your face. But when you look at this, like, I don't think Ohio State is looking at this Penn State team and saying that it's worse because Drew Aller can't play. Like, I actually think that there's some belief that Ethan Grunkmeyer, the second-year quarterback from Columbus, Ohio, is maybe going to provide a little bit of a spark that Drew Aller couldn't, because everyone knows what you get out of Drew Aller. You don't know what you're going to get out of Ethan Grunkmeyer. And that's kind of where I want to ask you as a former linebacker, but you have a unique perspective here from playing both sides of the football in college. What's the difference between for an offense when you have a quarterback that's taking over and learning things? Do you get like that dead cat bounce? You know what I mean? From a guy that's like a new energy, new style of play, etc. And is the difference more felt on offense, or do you feel it if you're trying to prepare for a new guy on defense? Like, what's harder?
I think it's definitely more difficult from a defensive planning standpoint on what you're going to get from that guy. Now, on the flip side, Berm, we could even talk about, my freshman and sophomore year on offense with Terrell Pryor, when there was a big play to be made or something to be done, everyone kind of looked at Terrell and said, hey, the guy's going to do his thing, right? You fast forward to my junior year when we're going back and forth between quarterbacks, and it reminds me so much of what Penn State's going through, that everyone around, either at that time, Joe Bowsman or Braxton Miller, steps up and is like, hey, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make the play to put kind of the quarterback on my back. And so from a game planning standpoint, obviously, to your original question, it's a lot more difficult with Ohio State's defense to figure out what Ethan Grunkmeyer is going to do, especially the last game Penn State played against Iowa. I believe their third-string quarterback, who's a way more mobile guy, got 20 snaps or something like that against Iowa at Iowa. So when you start game planning only off of really, 2 games of tape, what are you doing? It's not even really 2 games of tape. It's, Drew Aller got hurt, and I think near halftime of the Northwestern game or late in the game, whatever it was.
Late fourth quarter, yeah.
Oh, late fourth quarter, right? So you're really going off of just 1 game of tape. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do. I know the storylines you already brought up is what I am so amped up about this week. You've got Jim Knowles, who wants to do everything possible to shut down Ryan Day and Brian Hartline's offense. Like Jim Knowles might go all out blitz 10 plays in a row to just see what can happen, right? You don't know what's going to come from Jim Knowles. You might know
There's
better.
There's a good chance that leads to 7 touchdowns for Ohio State. So
correct. But Jim Knowles is going to do everything possible from that standpoint. You talk about Ethan Grunkmeyer, right? Like, Ethan Grunkmeyer is an Olentangy kid that should have been in school with RJ Day, which is Ryan Day's son, right? And so Ryan obviously knows Ethan Grunkmeyer very well. The families know each other very well. Like, you've got a kid who grew up here and is coming into the horseshoe for the very first time. Like, that's a huge storyline. And then the other storyline that also no one's talking about, which is kind of how we let off our show today, is you've got these Penn State players that all came back for their senior year, wanting to win a Big Ten and wanting to win a national championship. These guys have never beaten Ohio State, right? And there's a pseudo kind of rivalry between Penn State and Ohio State that no one really discusses or makes a big deal about, but there is, especially between the coaching staff and players. And so you've got these guys that have not been Ohio State yet and are going to do everything possible to win this football game. So the storylines are abundant. The energy is going to be abundant in this game. Like, it's not a number 1 Ohio State versus a 4-loss Penn State team that's reeling. This is going to be a big-time heavyweight fight.
And what's fascinating, Zach, is that Ohio State has obviously beat Penn State 8 times in a row. I think like 15 of the last 16. But of those 8 games, like, I think only one of them has been over a 2-score difference. So, like, we're so used to this being one of those games where Ohio State goes into it thinking it's going to be close. And I have felt over the last couple of years that at times Ryan Day pays a little bit too much deference to the opponent and says to him, and like kind of talks himself into the idea that a game has to be close because the team they're playing has good players. But when we're talking about Penn State, obviously you don't have Drew Aller. You have Grunkmeyer coming home and making his first start. Like, Jackson Smolik, the backup quarterback for Penn State, did play a lot against Iowa, but he didn't throw a pass. So is he just going to be the who's the guy they just lost to Missouri? Pabula. Yeah. So, like, is he the Andy Koltanecki, the Penn State offensive coordinator, shut down their offensive practice stuff to the media last week for the first time like ever? So they're trying to do some things. Clearly, they want to come out and be tricky. But for Ohio State and the defense, what's the biggest challenge you face there? Is it not knowing if, with Penn State having an off weekend as well this week, if they're just going to come out and do something totally different? Is it not knowing what Grunkmeyer can do? I've talked to people in the program at Ohio State, and they said that they thought Ethan Grunkmeyer played fairly well against Iowa, despite the fact that he was 15 to 28 for 93 yards and 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. Like, statistically, he doesn't look like he played very well. But when you're on the road making your first start and you're doing it at Iowa at night, like, that can be a daunting place to go in. What can Ohio State actually learn from watching that Iowa tape? Or is there such a difference between game 1 and game 2 for a quarterback, and then you add in the off week and the potential for new wrinkles, that maybe you take that tape and completely dismiss it? Like, you can't really learn tendencies from one game film, right?
Birm, yes to all of the above of what you just said, even though not all of them were yes, no questions. But it's so hard when you don't know what's coming to game plan from a defense standpoint. And you hit the nail on the head of Penn State's going to throw some new things at Ohio State. They're going to give them things that they've probably never seen before and never shown on tape. That's what makes it so hard, because how do you pick up on tendencies? How do you look at their top 3 formations? How do you look at their top 3 route trees that they've been running that year, right? Like, those are all things that so many defenses, when you're game planning, you do, right? Because they'll show different formations, but still run their top 3 plays. They'll show different formations, but still run their top 3 route tree that they like to run, right? So, like, that's normally what you do as a defense, is pick up on those tendencies. Well, when you close practice to the offense's side of the ball, when you're throwing in multiple quarterbacks, when you've got quarterbacks that you barely have any tape on, you have no idea what they're going to do. And that's what makes it so hard. It almost feels like a game 1. And when I say that, so many defenses go into game 1 of the season playing base defense. They're not going to do anything crazy. They're not going to, have a specific game plan. It's a lot of it play defense and just read and react. And you're going to see a lot of that, because Ohio State can't go and throw a whole bunch of different looks at them, not knowing what Penn State's going to come out in, especially when they're showing different personnels and things like that. So Ohio State's got to play base early on. You might see them make big adjustments as the game goes on, but this is going to play very much like a week 1 game for the Ohio State defense. Now, if they pick up on tendencies where, certain quarterbacks or certain personnel or certain combinations of running back, quarterback, wide receiver are in, and guess what? They are running the football or passing the football, right? And you start picking up on things. That's where the guys in the box, that's where the GAs are so crucial, because they start charting that stuff so quickly and early that they can pass that information along. And that's when you start picking up in your tendencies in game and can start calling plays. And kind of that's when you get into your chess game.
Obviously, there's a whole week worth of discussion ahead of this game, but from your perspective, watching Penn State as you have this year, watching Ohio State, what's the area that you look at this Penn State team and think to yourself, well, if they do this, that there's a path to win? Because, I mean, when you're talking about Ohio State, the Buckeyes do so many things so well. But I go back to last November, and I remember talking to Austin and other people at the time saying, hey, there's a path to victory here for the guys from Ann Arbor. And if things go this way, then it's a problem for Ohio State. Now, Buckeyes were 23-point favorites in that game. They're 17.5 points favorites in this one. So, like, what to me, it's like, does Penn State have to come out and run the triple option on Saturday just to, like, to completely surprise Ohio State? Or, like, is there a world where you look at what Penn State does with a brand new quarterback, with wide receivers who, even though they went and brought in new guys, have been still a little bit underwhelming because the offensive play calling has been suspect? Nicholas Singleton looks like a guy who has never played football before after being one of the most vaunted backs in the country over the last couple of years. Like, what can they do to actually put Ohio State in peril from what you've seen?
There are 3 things. If Penn State somehow, some way, and they couldn't do this under Drew Aller, so with the new quarterbacks, who knows, if they are somehow able to throw the football and be a threat vertically down the field, that can be an issue for Ohio State, because everyone this year that's played Penn State has played man on the outside and dared Penn State to run the football. And guess what? Penn State can't run the football when you're loading the box. So if they somehow, some way come out and are able to get a connection downfield and start building some momentum in the passing game, that's a big thing for them. The other thing is The next two are probably pretty obvious, but it's a way for them to win the game. The turnover battle, right? If Ohio State goes out there and turns the ball over, whether that be, we've seen it on special teams, whether, fumbling the football, whether that be not getting an onside kick if Penn State does a surprise onside, whether that be just, making dumb mistakes on offense, fumbling the football, throwing interceptions, doing those things. Like that's
killing yourself with penalties, et cetera.
Correct, right? And then the third thing is the explosive plays. And when I say explosive plays, I say, the fake punt, the reverse pass, like the things that Michigan has done the past couple of years that in situations where you're like, there is no way they're calling a trick play, because let's be honest, like trick plays are gimmick plays that people think they work all the time. They really don't, right? And you're taking the core players out of what they really do with a halfback pass or a wide receiver pass, right? If Penn State is able to call those plays, connect on those plays, and get some big first downs and keep the momentum going on drives, that's a recipe to beat Ohio State. And so those are the three things. Like if I'm Ohio State, I'm making sure I'm taking care of the football. I'm making sure I'm alert on every special teams. I'm looking at my tape in self scouting, which I know they do on bye weeks. But looking, hey, are my guys on kickoff bailing a little too early before the balls hit? We saw what Wisconsin did in punt. Right? Wisconsin had a fake punt for 22 yards. And guess what? All of the guys on punt return bailed. And so there's little things like that they have to make sure they have sound for Saturday, because Penn State will try and attack them in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, they lost to Iowa a week ago, 25-24, again, in Iowa City. It's a 25-24 game, whatever. Mark Gronowski, the quarterback for Iowa, threw the ball 16 times for a total of 68 yards. Like, Ohio, this is one of those games where you wonder if you're Ryan Day and a team and an offense that has struggled to find some identity, struggled to find consistency in the run game. You see what Iowa did on the ground against Penn State. Now that's without Tony Rojas. We don't know if he'll be back this week or not. Their star linebacker. But Iowa averaged almost 7.5 yards a carry against Penn State last week. Like, I wonder if Ryan Day and the coaching staff thinks that this is a game to get healthy on the ground. And in doing so, like, do you play right into Penn State's hands there by not actually using your weapons? Because as you said, Jim Knowles wants to like try things and take some risks on defense. So like, if you're not willing to take those shots, which I think maybe that was the warning that Ohio State wanted to give for the Wisconsin game when they came out and threw it 42 times, like it just sets up an interesting discussion, because you have a month left of the regular season. You want to get healthy on the ground game. Weather returns, like supposed to be 55, like low chance of rain, not really that windy. Like, but if you're Ohio State, like, are you working on what you need to work on? Or are you going to try to come out and say, hey, we're going to do what this defense is going to allow us to do? And Jim Knowles traditionally is going to allow an offense to take some shots.
Yeah. You have to throw the football. You have to open it up. I don't think this is one of those games where you try, inserting your will into the run game and saying, hey, listen, we are going to run the football against you no matter if we're set up for it or not, but we're doing it to set the tone. That's not this kind of game. Jim Knowles, as we all know from him being defense coordinator for here the last number of years, they can give up big plays in the pass game. That is his MO. The communication on the back end, the blitz packages, which turns into man coverage, like they will allow you to take shots. And I think you have to do that early and often to then keep the safeties back, to then you're able to open up the run game. I will say, I don't know about you, Birm, but I'm super excited to see if they put out a crew of Bo Jackson and Isaiah West on Saturday. Like we will see against Penn State, big game. We'll know quickly how much trust they have in the two young guys.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that's where it's heading. I mean, for the offense, it seems like, and again, I hate using terms like seems like or feels like, but there does seem to be a noticeable difference in the energy that the run game has when the young guys are on the field. And that's not to say James Peoples isn't a young guy. Obviously, he's only in his second year, but I'm talking Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, the willingness that they have to put their head down and get skinny and get through a hole, get small. They've done a much better job, that pair has, of actually playing to the offensive line strengths. and it sets up the run game in a nice way. And that sets up what you saw last week against Wisconsin with the play action, with Julian Sayin being able to do some more stuff. I mean, obviously, ironically, the game against Wisconsin, Ohio State drops back, throws it 42 times, the most in Julian's career. The pass protection for Ohio State in that game was probably the worst it's been in a game this season.
Yes.
So, like, what does Jim Knowles see there? Does he see an opportunity to take some risks? That's really the game within the game. And, we all know, you and I know Ryan Day fairly well. Like, we know he's not going to say anything about maybe any personal feelings about this game, especially with the defensive coordinator at Penn State. But, like, we know him well enough to know that if he's letting it rip, it's because he wants to inflict some damage. And so we're gonna see early, I think, in that game. I wanted to ask you, Zach, on an off week, these are sort of new phenomenons around college football to have, especially the pair of off weeks. But what was like the real value for you? Because we've seen Ryan Day's teams in the last couple of years not really come out clean after off weeks, and that's been a recurring problem. Do you think that this second off week, if it's handled significantly different than the first one, that the result on Saturday will look different than the previous return games?
Yeah, off weeks are great, but they also kill momentum. And what I say by that is, when you're playing football, your entire year is regimented, whether it be winter workouts, whether it be spring football, summer workouts, into training camp in the season. Like, you are on a regimented schedule. And when you hit the season and you're so used to Sunday's this, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? And it's game day. When you change that up, it just takes you out of your routine. And as we all know, sometimes when you get out of your routine, even if it's one time, it's hard to get back into it. And so that's the thing. And I don't want to say they've always started slow. Maybe they started a little bit slow against Washington, but then again, your bye week is you're going on the road across the country in a place that's really tough to play. And so,
in a first road game of the season, et cetera. So
correct, right? There's so many other things. So I think this is handled differently. I think the mindset coming out of this bye week is different, because guess what? After this bye week, all games are in November and here on out, right? And we all know in November is when championships are won. And so there is no taken off the gas, but right, the one at the beginning of the year might be more of, hey, let's self-reflect on the first 3 weeks. Let's catch our breath. Let's see what our identity is going to be once we get into conference football. Now it's, hey, listen, we got our foot on the gas pedal, and now it's, hey, we're going after everyone's throat, and we have the next 4 games dictate whether we're playing in the Big Ten championship game, whether we're making the college football playoff. Right? Like, there's tons of things at stake, and those guys know it. The one thing I do like about bye weeks, though, is it's such
off weeks
is just the mental break, right? Yeah. And everyone talks about physically and everything else. You get as a player, you get so juiced up on Saturdays. It's like you build up your tank and you just let it rip on Saturdays, and you are just blown out. Right. And so to be able to get a week where you sit back, watch college football. I know one of my favorite things was Saturday morning, actually being able to take in College game day, actually being able to sit around and, have pizza and wings with my buddies and watch football. Right. And because normally on those days, guess what? You're getting the juice going, the tank's riled up, and you're burning as much fuel as you can. And so those breaks are great. Those breaks actually bring teams together. Yeah, I mean, they're just great for you mentally. And I think this bye week, Birm, and you could tell me, I feel like Ohio State gets the short end of the stick with their bye weeks. I think this might be the best bye week they could have gotten, knowing that, hey, listen, we got 4 games and all of them are in November, and it's game on from here on out.
Yeah, it's set up kind of nicely. I mean, it divided up this season into basically 3 parts. Austin had said it multiple times after the first off week following the Ohio game in September, was that it sort of felt like a second training camp that you could then ramp up toward the Big Ten play and heading on the road to the 3-game road stretch against Wisconsin Illinois and Washington, and making sure that you were ready for that. Now you get, as you said, I think the mental break, which is a pretty important piece of things. But I thought the most interesting thing that I saw in the last week is Ryan Day's decision to move the band day to last week. And that's not something we've talked about yet on the Austin Birm Show or on the beat here on 10
What's your take on that?
I think it's pretty smart. I mean, I don't. The reality is, I understand why people love the tradition. Nobody is more of a fan of Ohio State tradition than I am. But with the game happening on Thanksgiving week, that week is so compacted, so shortened. You have to jam so much into that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday because of Thanksgiving on Thursday, and then travel day on Friday. Like you really have to cram stuff in. I think that moving it to the off week, especially when the off week comes this close to November, I think it's a fine decision. I don't see any problem with it at all. Obviously, you want to, Ross Bjork has said over and over that they want to, it's tradition evolved, right? Like it's still there, but it does make sense to me to not have a bunch of grab ass happening the week of the Michigan game. Like I don't, I've not been in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center when the band's in there doing all that, but to me, it feels like grab ass, and that's fine if you have a normal work week. If you don't have a normal work week and you're shortened to 72 hours to get ready for that game with all the weight that will be on it, especially Michigan's going to go into that game with a chance to go to the Big Ten championship game. So
no, they will. They're going to win every game here on out.
Right. So that game isn't just about how it makes you feel. Like it's actually for something. And so I think it's a fine decision. I know that some people will push back on it, but as somebody who's participated in that event and somebody who's still around the program regularly now, what is your vibe or what's your take on that decision?
I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I am one that I do love tradition. I do love, we talked about routine. Like I remember when I was at Ohio State, the routine of Michigan week, I loved because you had the band on Sunday. Like you had different events throughout the week, the senior tackle, all those things, right? I loved it. But now more so than ever, back then we were sheltered, right? Like there was no getting through to us. The Woody Hayes was like Fort Knox. Now with NIL and everything else that's going on and the way media is, I mean, it's blown up. And so the amount of access that people have to the Woody Hayes, to players, to different events throughout the week of the Ohio State Michigan game, it's just too much. And so in order to take one of those events that is still a big part of the tradition and move that to the bye week, I think it's brilliant. To your point, everything gets condensed. Not only do things get condensed, and not only is it Thanksgiving, which I love, I don't think the game should ever move from Thanksgiving weekend, but there is just so much that goes into that game now. And to be able to take one of those distractions, remove it. Obviously, we know how the last couple of years have went. I think, there's turkey drives that I know players are a part of. There's multiple different things that players are a part of now. Remove one of those from that week. Let the guys settle in, know how important this game is, and it's a great move by Ryan Day. And for everyone who gets upset about it, I think Ross says it best. It's you take traditions and you tweak them. You can never stay the same. If you're always staying the same, you're never going to get better. And so the traditions that they were doing in the 1950s are obviously different than the ones they do now. The ones that they're doing now are going to continue to get tweaked where the tradition is still there, but it's not what it used to be. And times are changing.
Yeah, I mean, in the 50 years ago, that game was the last game you played in your college career. So now, if this happens and you do things the right way, you might have 5 games after the Michigan game. So to put all of that emphasis on that week, like hell, dance with the band in January. I don't care. Like, fine, there's plenty of time to do it now, and I think that this is a smart decision. It's one of those moments where you have to be able to acknowledge that maybe. We're being distracted during the week of the game because we're doing so many things. And again, now that it's basically a 3-day work week instead of 5 like it used to be, I think it makes perfect sense. And Ryan Day constantly trying to find ways to do things a little bit different in order to give his team the best opportunity to win. Normally, that's just because his team is better than everyone else. And that's probably going to be the case against Penn State as well. But as we talked about on this episode of The Beat, Penn State is going to be ready to play. Ohio State will be ready to go as well. We'll be back with Roosters, the live show at Roosters on Olentangy River Road on Monday morning. The new location is open. So, folks, if you're interested in checking it out, it's beautiful. It's awesome. That's Zach Boren. He's joined us once again for a Boren Blitz on the Beat. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. Thanks for watching, everyone. We will see you later. Have a good day.